Welcome to a special Between Taorminas, episode 298 here. I am Sammy Taormina, along with my own co-host, Anthony Taormina.
Hello, how you doing?
And wherever Ian Weatherspoon is, he is not here. I don't know why.
We
So,
send our love and prayers out to Ian Weatherspoon.
yes, we should. We really should. Anyway, we got a lot of sports to talk about this week here on BT. Of course, the fallout at Maryland with DJ Durkin. Got a lot of Michigan State cover. We got some Lions to talk about, and also the Lake Orion Dragon lady volleyball team. So let's go to our main sports topic here, Anthony. We have the what happened at Maryland, the whole mess fiasco involving DJ Durkin. It really showed its ugly head against Michigan State, and Maryland lost 24-3 to Michigan State.
Let's talk about the week before the game, or the a few days before the game, how that worked out. Okay, how DJ Durkin was brought back by the Board of Regents.
That was a horrible move.
There was a lot of backlash against the board for even considering bringing him back.
That was a terrible move.
Apparently, though, DJ Durkin made a very good presentation to the board where it encouraged the board to the point where they threatened the president to either bring him back or be faced with termination. And that was not a very popular move with the Maryland community. It really sounded like the Maryland community sounded out and that they did not want to have DJ Durkin back, that they view him as very much distraction, very much as somebody that is morally responsible for a death of a player, Jordan McNair. And, I just wonder if Maryland should have just made the move and just fired Durkin in the first place, and none of
Maryland
this would have happened.
Maryland should have made the move initially to fire Durkin, because when you look at what happened with that program, Maryland, Durkin was 10-15 as a coach, and 5-13 in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at what Durkin did in his off-season workout conditioning program, that is.
What he did was he basically let Rick Court run.
Yeah, he let Rick Court run the workout program, and that's something that
he basically took a hands-off approach, and he let Rick Court run the off-season conditioning program. And unfortunately, it sounds like Rick Court was not qualified to look at or even consider the workout program, how it impacted players, especially in 80-degree weather.
You got to look at and it looked like it was an abusive culture, toxic culture over there.
It certainly sounds like it.
It certainly sounds like it.
I mean, you just cannot go into a situation to where it's virtually, where they expect players to take that really, mentally, it's a difficult subject because some coaches are very, very passionate. And then you got some coaches that are, that have that balance between having to motivate or yell and then also showing a calmer, more relaxing approach to coaching.
But when you look at
what Rick Court and what others were
DJ
Durkin were doing, it was demeaning players, it was degrading players, it was embarrassing them, humiliating players, and that culture is just unacceptable.
And now you look at it, now both of them are now out. Durkin was fired by Wallace Lowe, the president of Maryland.
Apparently, they said that Durkin was surprised by it.
Well, because when you look at the he was just reinstated back in the program, and then Lowe decided to fire him. He's the president. He's in charge of the employees. The board is only responsible for firing Wallace
recommendations.
Lowe.
The board can only make recommendations, but the president is the one that has the ultimate power to ultimately fire a coach or an athletic director.
And Lowe, I think did the right thing here by firing Durkin, because now It looked like, according to reports, initially he wanted to fire Durkin.
Yeah, I mean, he was always in the position of wanting to fire DJ Durkin. He had said that to the board. He said that having Durkin was a distraction and, and that it was not beneficial to the players. And the thing is, what I don't think the board knew was the president had a lot of popular
He
support
did.
amongst those in the university. And the good example is you saw the college Democrats and the college Republicans, along with many other groups, were all standing together against DJ Durkin and against the decision that the Board of Regents made. And
Well, the board chairman resigned.
yes,
And
he was forced to resign because he was seen as the face of the Board of Regents, and unfortunately, you know, somebody has to take the fall for it, and he ended up taking the fall. Now, did you hear about Tim Tebow bashing Maryland's Board of Regents?
I did hear about that.
What's your take on that?
I think Tebow was a little out of line here.
Why?
Because what happened at Maryland, that was bad. It was really bad.
Basically, he was saying that the Board of Regents, or that that they caved into, which was essentially a popular support, that the Board of Regents caved into them.
Well, let's
and
look
the
at, of
president
course,
caved
let's
in.
look at, there's been some other jobs that popular support. Look at Greg Schiano, of course, when he was at Tennessee.
Mhm.
Tennessee was ready to name Schiano the head coach until
Mhm.
somebody referred to Schiano's past when he was at Penn State
Yep.
involving that scandal. So, so it was a really tough situation how that's unfolded there.
But then that brings up a whole new question: is do you stick by your convictions, or do you go with the popular support?
Well, I think I think a little bit of both, because
I mean, I'm saying in this case,
In this
the
case,
right thing to
the
do
right
was
thing
fire
was
DJ
to fire
Durkin.
Durkin. And I think it made the right sense.
It was.
And I think it clearly showed an impact in that Maryland game against Michigan State, where Michigan State just literally dominated Maryland.
But Michigan State is a much better team than Maryland.
They are. They're a much better team than Maryland. And it showed.
Mhm.
So it's interesting to see. Michigan State right now sits at 6-3. Got a big one, Ohio State this week. Do you see
Maryland though at the same time as 5-4? Do you see Maryland getting in?
Yes, I think Maryland's bowl eligible. I think they beat Indiana. I think they're a 6-6 team.
Do I think Michigan State beats Ohio State?
Yes,
I don't know. It's
I
hard
think
to say.
they beat Ohio State.
Why?
Even though they don't have a quarterback issue, of course. With the Rocky Lombardi and Brian Lewerke, I think that's I think Mark D'Antonio will get that thing straightened out. But I know there's clearly a quarterback controversy. Let's talk a little bit of Michigan before we go to break here.
Michigan just dominated Penn State.
Bob Bridges right now must be Jansen and cylinders right now.
Well, I mean, you look at Michigan sent a message that they want to be in the college football playoff. How do you do that? You dominate your rivals.
And he went out.
You went out and you dominate your rivals. And that's
Well, the next
exactly
2
what
weeks,
happened.
Michigan's going to really dominate against Rutgers and Indiana. The game they want is Ohio State.
Right, and they got a great chance to get that in Columbus.
They got a great chance to do that.
I mean,
Ohio State's really struggled.
Michigan really, it's not just a matter of they want to beat Ohio State.
They
want
wanna
to
destroy
crush
Ohio State.
They want to crush Ohio State, go into the Big Ten championship game against whoever it'll be.
Right now it's Northwestern. Michigan already beat Northwestern early in the year.
Yes, albeit it was a war too.
Yes, I mean, that Big Ten West a mess.
But at the same time, you would think Michigan's the de facto favorite right now in the Big Ten.
Right now, I would say right now, where do you see Michigan right now in the college football playoff right now?
I think Michigan right now is either a 3 or a 4. I mean, Michigan is one of those teams that can match up with Alabama,
Even though they
especially
lost to Notre
defense.
Dame. Even though they lost to Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah.
I think they can shut down Tua Tagovailoa.
I think, don't forget, Michigan played Notre Dame week 1, and it's always hard to play a team
If Michigan
week
were to
1.
play Alabama, who would you take right now?
Who would I take between Alabama and Michigan?
Yes.
You know what? I'm going to take Michigan. I think Michigan's defense can shut down Alabama's offense.
I think that would be a heck of a matchup. That would be a great matchup. You know what? If there's one team I think I could give Alabama problems, I hate
You know what?
saying
Go
this,
blue.
it's Michigan.
You know what? Go blue. If any team can beat Alabama, it's Michigan. You know what? I'll say it on air. Go blue.
Bob Bridge would be so proud of you right now.
I know.
All right, now we're going to take a little commercial break here on BT here. We got our second segment to talk about here, and it'll be the Detroit Lions. So stick tuned on BT.
The Orion Area Parade Group invites one and all to come out to the 2018 Orion Lighted Christmas Parade on Saturday, December 1st, beginning at 6 p.m. This year's theme is Rockin' Down Broadway, and dozens of participants will assemble at Blanche Sims Elementary School before traveling through the streets of downtown Lake Orion. Watch as lighted floats, costumed characters, marching bands, and community groups head north on Broadway Street to the Eamon Center, with Santa and Mrs. Claus ushering in the Christmas season. For more information, visit OrionLightedParade.org or check out 2018 Orion Lighted Christmas Parade on Facebook.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Welcome back to Between Taorminas. Here, I'm Sammy Taormina here, and with Anthony Taormina here.
How you doing?
From the podcast room here on the beautiful campus of Orion Neighborhood Television.
And no Ian Weatherspoon again.
I don't know why. I don't know where he's been. But anyway, we got to talk a little bit of NFL football here. We got to talk about the Detroit Lions.
Do we have to talk about the Lions? It's suffering.
It is suffering and depressing with how they played. They did not play well against Minnesota. They look like a bunch of It looked like
They made a big move. They traded away Golden Tate.
For a third-round pick, that is stupid.
They traded him to Philadelphia.
That's stupid because that tells me that the Detroit Lions are giving up on the season. They're giving up on the season. That tells me that Bob Quinn is a loser of a general manager. He is.
Well, it wasn't that long ago fans were praising this guy.
Now he deserves some criticism, particularly what happened to Matthew Stafford. 10 sacks. 10 sacks allowed against the Vikings.
That's failure
garbage.
on the offensive line.
And they're paying a lot of money for that offensive line.
That's a major failure.
You pay Rick Wagner, TJ Lang, a ton of money. You drafted Eric Decker. You drafted Glasgow. And then what have they done for you? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Stafford should not be being sacked 10 times in a game.
He shouldn't be sacked 10 times.
I mean, Stafford's already taken a beating throughout his career.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many more can he take?
How many more? And then, of course, also what doesn't help is no Golden Tate. You don't have that true slot receiver to help you. I know Marvin Jones doing everything he could. Where's Kenny Galladay been? Where's he been? Where has he been?
What about the Lions' run game?
And then the Lions' running attack. Kerryon Johnson's starting to struggle again. LeGarrette Blount, he has not done much. Stafford's not having a lot of time here when you look at it. And then you look at the Minnesota Vikings. Their defense is one of the best in the NFL, clearly. But in a division where your best team is Minnesota right now, Green Bay's struggling, Chicago's rolling. The Lions play the Bears this week.
Could you say Chicago's probably one of the best teams in the NFC?
Yes, because of the way they've been playing. I mean, Mitch Trubisky is having a heck of a year. As I've said a couple weeks ago on BT, the Chicago Bears know how to develop players. They know how to develop teams. The Detroit Lions do not know. They don't develop teams really well. They really don't.
So there's a lot of panic in Detroit?
Yes, there is.
So it'll be interesting to see.
It will be. That's it on the Lions talk here. Let's talk about some other teams around the Detroit area.
Pistons.
The Pistons, I know this is something Joey Tysick has a lot of interest in. They started off 4-0, but then they're struggling again. Tell me what the problem is with the Pistons.
Over-reliance on Blake Griffin, maybe. You can tell that Reggie Jackson is not being the closer. He wants to be the closer, but the problem is Blake Griffin's a much better player.
Andre Drummond's
Andre
starting to play
Drummond
terrible.
is
He was
struggling.
abused by Joel Embiid twice.
I mean,
He was
Embiid.
abused by him twice.
Embiid's a good player. I know he talks a lot of trash, which, is not exactly the best thing to do. But, I mean, he's handled Andre Drummond last 2 games.
And that's something that's really...
That's concerning.
That's very concerning when you look at the Pistons situation, how that's unfolded. I think at the end of the day here, this is a basketball team that if they want to make the playoffs, if they want to do some damage in the Eastern Conference, they got to start getting their act together and start playing basketball, particularly Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond. Now, Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond, do you think they should be trade bait?
It's hard to say. I think that, it's really, really hard. I mean, you have some good guards out there. But I mean, we'll see.
I think you could get value for both those players.
You could.
Because, when you look at maybe...
The Pistons don't have a lot of cap space. They don't have a lot of draft space.
They don't have a lot of cap space. I mean, they do got some draft picks now they can work with now. They don't have a second-round pick, considering what happened. When you give away a first-rounder for Blake Griffin last year, it kind of really bit this team in the rear.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Pistons right now, a bit of an identity crisis right now. They got to address that right now really quickly. Let's go to the, I know our father wanted to talk about this, the Boston Red Sox World Series.
Yeah.
It's first year 2014 Detroit Tigers.
Basically, that's what it is. I mean, the Boston Red Sox just went into and dominated the Dodgers.
They did.
I mean, it's crazy to think that, but I mean,
that's the fact.
I know it's a fact.
That is the fact that they've dominated they dominated. They look really good.
Mm-hmm.
They look great.
I mean, now Boston's going to contend, but they'll have opponents too. They have the Yankees. They have the the Astros will be back. I mean, it's not like that the AL is going to be some cupcake, even though the AL Central needs to get better.
Oh, my goodness.
Hard to believe it wasn't that long ago. The AL Central is one of the best conferences in baseball.
Best divisions in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at it here, clearly the top team in the AL Central is the Cleveland Indians.
Right now, yeah.
Right
Ian
now.
Weatherspoon's favorite team.
Yes, it is.
How about the Wings?
But the second place team in that division though is the right now I would say it's the Minnesota Twins.
You think the Twinkies?
Yeah, maybe Chicago.
You think the Twinkies?
Yes.
Do you notice in hockey the Wings are starting to get hot again a little bit?
They just lost the other night to the Oilers.
Edmonton's a good team.
But, when you look at hockey teams, both our hockey teams have winning records right now.
The Wings beat the Stars.
I try not to think about it because that was a horrible experience. But then again, that might have been the best thing that happened to the Stars because the Stars have won 3 straight since.
But at the same time,
on the road.
The Wings were winning until the Oilers game. But I mean, still, it's one of those things where the
Detroit Red Wings to me is a daycare center. They really much are.
Really,
they are a daycare center because they got a lot of young players on that team. I think at LSU, he's decent. Dylan Larkin, they got Jimmy Howard. I don't think is very good. But I think Mike Green will be a very good trade bait for Detroit, considering they need to get younger soon. Have you heard?
Are struggling.
Have you heard about Steve Yzerman at all being savior of this Red Wing team?
I've heard a lot of rumblings about it.
I don't think that's going to be the case.
I know my Avalanche are struggling a little bit.
I know, but they got arguably the best line in hockey right now.
Right, but they got the tough Predators coming
They
up.
do. The Dallas Stars right now have won 3 straight since that Detroit debacle. On the road, got Boston. They got to play Columbus, and then they got to go back home, play San Jose. It'll be interesting to see what the Stars have. I think Dallas right now is ready to go on a roll right now.
I think you're in denial.
I'm not in denial. I am not in denial to see what is going on.
You got any final thoughts?
Well, got a lot of questions to figure out. I mean, throughout the sports world, college football, the playoffs are starting. You know what excites me is college basketball season.
Let's
getting-
talk about that in the third segment.
We got that. We also got Lake Orion Dragons volleyball to talk about too. Here on Between Taorminas on Orion Neighborhood Television.
Enjoy the winter wonderland that is Orion Township by taking part in the second annual Snow Dash on Sunday, December 16th. The 5K race starts at 9 a.m. sharp at the Orion Center and takes participants onto the scenic Pollyant Trail before circling back to the finish line at the Orion Center. For more information, call 248-391-0304, extension 3500, or visit orionparks.com to register today.
Welcome back to Between Taorminas on Orion Neighborhood Television. I am Sammy Taormina here with Anthony Taormina in the podcast room here.
How you doing?
I'm hanging in there. Let's talk about the before we talk college basketball, we gotta talk about Lake Orion. The Lady Dragons volleyball team coming off a district final win
Ranked number
against
2 in the
Clarkston. And then they do win over Clarkston on Saturday. Now they play on Tuesday against Troy at Lake Orion High School. Of course, me and Joey Tice will be calling that game. And also Stony Creek and Walled Lake Northern are also playing in there as well. But when you look at the Dragons, and I wrote an account about this. I said the 2018 Dragon team reminds me a little bit of the 2011 team. Do you think it's a good comparison?
I think it's a fair comparison, especially if the Dragons are able to get by the regional, and if they're able to get to Battle Creek, and to get by the they got to win the regional first, and that's not going to be easy because you got a very good Stony Creek Cougar team, and that's not underestimating Troy at all, because you look at Troy, Stony Creek are both OA red teams, a lot like Clarkston, and it's very difficult to beat a team twice or multiple times like the Dragons have beaten all
Let's
three
not
of those
forget
teams.
Stony Creek has beaten Lake Orion
And
at
that's true,
Lake
Stony
Orion.
Creek has beaten Lake Orion at Lake Orion, so that's extra motivation for the Dragons. So you look at all those signs, all those omens. There's some comparisons, but I don't think you should be comparing those two teams until the Dragons get by regionals. And also, you got to remember, the Dragons went through Marion in 2011 to get to, and then they beat Troy. So, I mean, the Dragons they got to beat, Stony Creek. More likely to be Stony Creek at, they got to beat Stony Creek if in the regional, and before you can start comparing them to that team from 2011.
Well, when you look at Lake
Or
Orion,
you could also compare them to potentially the team from 2016, where the Dragons lost in a classic 5-game set to Romeo, and that team in 2016 was pretty good.
but when you look at Lake Orion, their win against Clarkston, that really in the district final.
Well, Clarkston's also was an honorable state mention.
Yes, they were.
And Clarkston's always been a state power, and whenever Lake Orion and Clarkston play each other, you almost want to throw the records out of the window. And does the term rivalry mean anything? Because there's just a little bit more spice, a little bit more juice whenever Lake Orion and Clarkston play in anything, especially in volleyball, because they are so evenly matched, and they've always been fighting each other, especially the last several years in volleyball. So it's just a great rivalry.
It is a great rivalry when you look at it. Of course, Lake Orion beat Oxford and Holly to get to the district final.
Oxford's another team that Lake Orion has had some success against in volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, another OA red foe. So, I mean, it also tells about the OA red in general for volleyball, how tough the competition is and how many times these teams have played each other. Lake Orion's played Clarkston and Adams and Stony Creek and Troy multiple times. Bloomfield Hills, Seaholm. They played them multiple times.
They have played them multiple times, but when you look at, of course, when you look, I'm going to use a team I'm going to use Wall Lake Northern for example. They haven't really played the toughest cup competition,
No, they've not.
but when you look at the fact that they are having to look at possibly the three, you've got Lake Orion, Stony Creek, and Troy in that regional. That's going to be a tough task for that night team.
It'll be interesting to see how they do. I think when you look at the matchups for the regional, I think Walled Lake Northern is probably the weakest team of the four. So I mean, we'll see how it goes, but you never want to underestimate any team. I'll use an example. Pontiac was in our district a couple of times when Lake Orion and Clarkson, either one of those teams would play Pontiac, and even though Pontiac is not in the level of the competition, you still could not underestimate them.
No.
And and there was always that fear of letdown, and those things happen.
That is true. That is true.
You want to be careful.
You want to be careful. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with the Dragons this week.
Mm-hmm.
No projections here heading in. So we'll see what happens going forward there. Let's talk about another sport. College basketball. That is officially starting up this week. Kansas, the overall number 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like this upcoming college basketball season looks to be wide open.
Well, it's been wide open for a long, long time. I mean, there's a lot of freshmen who are coming up that there's a lot of hype. You obviously talk about Duke. Kansas is probably, right now they're the number 1 ranked team in the country, so Kansas is going to be strong. You can never underestimate North Carolina. You can't count out Kentucky. You can't count out Michigan or Michigan State. You just
Purdue.
Can't count Purdue out.
Purdue's going to be young, though.
I mean, it'll be an interesting college basketball season.
When you look at the conferences, I'm going to go from the Big Ten and the Horizon League this year, the MAC, the MAC 2. What are your thoughts about all those 3 conferences?
Well, I'll start with the MAC. I think the MAC is going to be extremely competitive. Obviously the team to beat is Buffalo, and then you got Akron as well. You can never ever count out Ohio U. The Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan, Western Michigan schools are pretty good. You can never ever count out anyone but I mean, right now I think Buffalo's still the favorite in the MAC, but it'll be very interesting to see. In the Horizon League, right now it stands Oakland is projected 4th. A lot of people are thinking it's a rebuild year over in Rochester. I don't think it's a rebuild. I think that last year Oakland had a lot of athletes. It was a very talented team that was just decimated by injuries. So, and you certainly don't want to ever say rebuild around Coach Greg Campy.
No.
He has in the past, when he's had teams that have not, when he has teams that don't have anything to lose, he's gotten the best from with the talent that he has gotten. So, and I expect that here. And I think the 4th ranking for Oakland is kind of fair, considering what Oakland was ranked going into last year's Horizon League tournament. I think it's fair to have Northern Kentucky and Wright State at the top. Those were the 2 top teams in the Horizon League. Then Illinois Chicago was 3rd. You can never, ever count out Milwaukee or Green Bay. Cleveland State, they had a really good tournament run last year. You can't count them out either. You can never count out Youngstown State. And then Detroit. It's interesting with Detroit. There is a lot of hype, but also at the same time,
they got a new coach. They got to rebuild the whole system.
They got to take some time to grow. McFoley is back for them, but I think that they
it's
need
time to develop that team.
But I think in terms of the Horizon League, that's kind of the pairing it's going to be. And then in the Big Ten, you've got I think to be fair to Purdue, I think it's Michigan State still. You can't count out the other teams in the Big Ten.
Wisconsin, I think, is going to be a little bit better than they were last year.
Yeah, and Wisconsin was pretty good last year.
No, they were not. They were bad last year.
Wisconsin will be
Ohio
back, yeah.
State could be a team to watch, even though last year they kind of overachieved a year ago.
Mhm.
You got to obviously, you know, a team I'm watching for in the Big Ten this year is Northwestern.
You really think
I think Chris
Northwestern's
Collins
gonna-
has done a really good job.
You really
la-
think Northwestern's
I think
gonna do well?
Northwestern could do well this year. I think they will do very well this year.
Can't count out Maryland.
No, you can't count out Maryland. Maryland's going to be there. I see Maryland maybe a 4 or 5 right now in the Big Ten. I also see possibly. I also see. But I think it wouldn't surprise me if the Big Ten gets at least 6 or 7 teams in the tournament this
That'd
year.
be something. If
Would
that
be
happened.
something. I mean, ACC's loaded this year.
Yep.
The SEC not as much beside Kentucky. Big 12, I'm not really sold on the Big 12.
Well, I mean,
Man,
you always
besides
gotta
Kansas,
You gotta
Um,
always. I mean, Texas will always contend. Oklahoma will always contend.
they
West
will.
Virginia will always contend.
They will. They will. They will always contend. So, and then the Pac-12, of course, with I still think the favorite. I mean, like it's why Arizona
My
has to be
question
favored.
will be: how much will the NCAA recruiting scandal impact this season? Because
think
a
it will
lot of
impact.
teams are under the microscope.
I think
So
will
it'll be
impact them.
very interesting to see how much the NCAA scandal, the recruiting scandal, how much that impacts this upcoming NCAA season.
And it will
So I
impact
think
them.
it will impact a lot of teams, especially those bigger teams
I think
that were
Louisville gets a
implicated.
death penalty. I think it
mean,
will.
that's hard to say. So we'll see what happens. I mean, you got Louisville, you got Kansas, you got Arizona. I mean, you've got multiple teams that Oregon. You've got multiple teams that are under NCAA investigation, or even from the feds. So I mean, we'll have to see how it goes. So I'm curious to see how much that will impact, if anything.
What are your final thoughts?
Quite an experience being in the podcast room. I mean, you don't see it happen very often where we're recording between Taorminas in the podcast room.
It is a good experience.
a
Really
great
great experience. Really is a great experience when you see it going forward. So
It is.
you know, splitting time between the studio and the podcast room would be a great experience.
It really is.
I mean, my final thoughts, it was a great experience being in the podcast room this week. We'll see what happens going forward with BT. You know, this is show number 298. We're 2 more episodes until 300. Hoping to have Ian back really soon.
Have a great night between
Have a great
Taorminas
night
and
between
see you later.
Taorminas. See you Lake Orion and see y'all soon.